Hello, it's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 11th of December. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast and the start of our coverage of the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit opens in Busan this morning, bringing together the leaders of Korea and 10 Southeast Asian countries as they look to take their partnership to the next level. Korea strikes a free trade agreement with Vietnam, and under this deal, Hanoi will remove tariffs on 200 additional products from Korea, including auto parts and cosmetics. Plus, the UN calls on Israel to launch a swift investigation into the death of a Palestinian minister involved in clashes with Israeli security forces in the West Bank. But we start with the opening of the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit down there in the nation's southern port city of Busan. The summit will officially open with the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit in around half an hour's time, and we'll have live coverage of the opening ceremony a bit later on. President Park Geun-hye will be welcoming the 10 ASEAN leaders over the course of the day. But for more details on the summit in general, let's connect to our Hwang Sang-hee in Busan. Sang-hee.
Mark, like you said, 10 leaders from ASEAN countries will be holding talks with President Park in Busan. Now, this year marks the 25th anniversary of the establishment of dialogue relations between Korea and ASEAN, and they will be looking for ways to further bolster their strategic partnership. Now, Seoul's foreign ministry has called this the most important diplomatic event of the year, since it is the first multilateral summit to be hosted by South Korea under the Park Geun-hye administration. Now, today, President Park will hold relay bilateral talks with the leaders of 6 nations, including Indonesia, the Philippines, and Singapore, where she is expected to seek support for her efforts to counter North Korea's nuclear program. Now, the multilateral summit, which is divided into 2 sessions, will actually be held on Friday, which is tomorrow. The leaders will discuss ways to expand bilateral cooperation, as well as global issues such as climate change and disaster relief efforts. Mark?
And Sang-hee, in around 30 minutes' time from now, the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit will kick off. Tell us more about that.
Right, around 570 business leaders from ASEAN and Korea are down here in Busan, and the CEO Summit will actually be a venue for them to network and seek new business opportunities. Now, economic ties between Korea and ASEAN are at their strongest, with ASEAN actually being Korea's second largest trade partner and third largest trade, investment destination. Now, the 2 partners are looking to nearly double their trade volume to $200 billion by 2020. And how will they go about doing this? Well, President Park will unveil Korea's plans to further bolster economic partnership with ASEAN in her opening remarks at the CEO Summit, which is, of course, where she will begin her official schedule of the day. Mark?
Well, thank you very much, Sang-hee, and do keep us updated throughout the day. And just another reminder that we will be bringing you live coverage of the opening of that Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit very shortly. Now, getting a head start on the Korea-ASEAN Summit, the leaders of Korea and Vietnam on Wednesday announced the conclusion of their free trade agreement. The deal comes after more than 2 years of negotiations. Our Chae Sun reports from Busan.
The concluding of Korea's free trade agreement with Vietnam may not seem like a big deal, considering the 7-year-old Korea-ASEAN FTA, but it's expected to help Korean small and mid-sized firms increase their exports to the Southeast Asian nation. Vietnam will remove tariffs on 200 additional products from Korea, including auto parts and cosmetics, many of which are manufactured by SMEs. Hanoi has also agreed to simplify its rules of origin and customs clearance, allowing textile and garments made in the inter-Korean Kaesang Industrial Complex to benefit from the simplified process. Seoul will open its market for nearly 500 additional Vietnamese goods, while excluding sensitive agricultural products such as rice, fresh garlic, and ginger. Korean companies specializing in tires and cotton anticipate boosting price competitiveness against their Japanese rivals in Vietnam. Compared to Tokyo's FTA with Hanoi, Korea has secured liberalization of more goods entering Vietnam, 2 percentage points higher in terms of import value. Considering Vietnam is Korea's #1 investment destination in Southeast Asia, The two sides have also bolstered protective measures for their respective investors.
Although the FTA with Vietnam will have a relatively limited effect on the domestic economy, it's expected to help Korea in joining regional trade networks such as the China-led FTAAP. It's also expected to speed up negotiations for two-way deals with other ASEAN members to increase Korean businesses' usage of the trade pact. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News, Busan.
And now on to another event ahead of the Korea-ASEAN Summit, and President Park sat down with her Malaysian counterpart on Wednesday. During talks with Prime Minister Najib Razak at the presidential office here in Seoul, the Korean president spoke highly of Malaysia's reforms and its development initiatives. She also referred to Korea's past participation in Malaysia's infrastructure projects. Now, this comes as Seoul is seeking to win bids in a highway project that would link the Southeast Asian nation with Singapore.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. South Korea's unification minister has called on Seoul and Washington to do more to re-engage with North Korea. Speaking at a forum on Korean unification in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, Ryu Kil-jae said that while South Korea and the U.S. have been trying to make Pyongyang change its ways, doing so in an atmosphere of cooperation and dialogue is much more effective. The minister also said that Pyongyang should be shown the benefits of cooperating with the world, adding that a more open North Korea will boost the quality of North Koreans' lives and encourage the regime to deal with its human rights issues. Minister Ryu is in the US to raise awareness of the South Korean government's push to reunify the two Koreas. Now, a renowned nuclear scientist says North Korea could be in possession of around 20 nuclear bombs in just over a year's time. Siegfried Hecker, who was in Seoul for a Korea-US forum, told a group of South Korean lawmakers on Wednesday that Pyongyang is presumed to have the capability to produce some 3 or 4 nuclear bombs a year. He added that North Korea could conduct several rounds of detonation tests to miniaturize nuclear warheads. Back in April, Mr. Hecker was reported to have said the North had around 10 nuclear bombs. South Korea's rival political parties have reached the middle ground on some pending legislation centred on boosting the economy and tackling rampant corruption in the public sector. They also agreed to reform the civil servant pension programme and launch a special probe into corruption in the defence industry. Our Ji Myung-gil reports.
The leaders of Korea's two main rival parties had much to discuss at Wednesday's meeting. They settled a number of differences, first and foremost agreeing that their top priority should be economic revitalization. Considering that real estate accounts for more than 80% of the nation's total wealth, lawmakers decided to pass revised real estate bills at the next plenary session slated for the end of this month. The move is intended to curb inflation in the real estate market and to lessen the financial risks for renters and home buyers. For more than a decade, Korea has been trying to address its growing pension deficit that stems from problems with the current pension system for public servants. The two parties agreed Wednesday to establish a pan-national body to gain social consensus on the issue. Public servants have shown fierce resistance to the Saenuri Party's proposed pension reform bill since it was drafted in late October. While the bill aims to secure pension funds for future generations, it requires public servants to pay more into the system while giving them less in return starting in 2016. In addition, the two parties agreed to a parliamentary audit of a recent defense industry corruption scandal. If the results of a current investigation led by prosecutors is deemed unsatisfactory. Last month, the government launched a probe into growing allegations of bribery between military officials and defense firms. Leaders of the rival parties also agreed to discuss other unsettled matters at a later date, such as opening a parliamentary audit of the controversial $20 billion project to refurbish the country's 4 major rivers carried out under the former Lee Myung-bak administration. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now to some news just coming in, and Korea's central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged at 2% this month. This follows 2 rate cuts, each by 1/4 of a percentage point in August and October this year. We'll bring you a full report on all the details on this in our next newscast at noon Korea time. Now, a state-run institute has lowered its growth estimate for Korea for this year and the next. The Korea Development Institute says it expects the Korean economy to grow 3.4% in 2014 and 3.5% in 2015. Both revised forecasts are 0.3 percentage points lower than the institute's previous estimates in the first half of the year. The institute said it made its decision in light of weak domestic consumption, slowing investment and uncertainties overseas. In particular, the KDI cited slowing export growth to China and the European Union. Now, falling prices and an aging society in Korea have prompted many analysts to draw some parallels with Japan, which itself suffered from decades of lost growth. Experts are saying now that if Korea wants to avoid a similar fate as Japan, the government needs to speed up its envisioned structural economic reforms. Our Song Ji-son reports.
Several key economic indicators, though more than 2 decades apart, are strikingly similar. For Japan, it was 1989 when growth slowed to the 0% range, shortly before becoming an aging society. It's like deja vu across the East Sea. Korea's fertility rate, the average number of children a woman has in her lifetime, has hovered around 1.2 in the past 4 years. That's well below the threshold of 2.1 needed to maintain the current population level. The poor fertility rate comes at a time Korea is being hit by the double whammy of low growth and a rapidly aging population. If Korea does follow the footsteps of Japan and enter a long-term slump, it's expected to take a harder blow than Japan did. That's because Korea's pension program and safety nets are not as comprehensive as Japan's were. Retirees and those preparing for their later years will cut back in spending, in turn fueling deflation and creating a vicious cycle. Economists say to prevent a long-term recession, reforms are needed, especially in the labor and manufacturing sectors. The government will also have to seek more flexible and efficient policies.
The reason Japan could not counter a recession was that their measures were too short-sighted. In order not to follow Japan's footsteps, Korea's reform and restructuring must be aimed at securing growth engines in the long term, which could raise its growth potential.
To realize that potential, economists say priority must be given to creating more jobs for the younger generation before extending the retirement age. Experts point out that Korea has one competitive edge at the moment. Its asset bubble is not as severe as Japan's. But they say reforms are needed now and needed quickly. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
A minister-level official of the Palestinian Authority has died after he and other activists were caught up in heated exchanges with Israeli security forces in the West Bank. For more details on this and what it means for the tentative peace in the Middle East, we join Eunice Kim at the News Centre. So Eunice, the death of this relatively high-profile Palestinian official is likely to raise tensions even further, really.
Yeah, that remains to be seen, but it's certainly not going to help, Mark. That official is Ziad Abu Ain. He was not a formal member of the cabinet, but the minister-level official was an advocate against Israeli settlements and its West Bank barrier. And it was for that reason that he and a group of others had set out to protest on Wednesday. They were met by some 30 Israeli soldiers and border police who fired tear gas and sound grenades at them. Most troubling is that video captured at the scene showed the 55-year-old being pushed and apparently strangled by an Israeli officer before looking faint as he fell to the ground. He was pronounced dead on his way to a hospital, and an autopsy is being carried out. Now, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas expressed shock and called Ain a martyr as he vowed a proper response.
Yes, and Eunice, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has called for a thorough and transparent investigation, and Israel says it is going to launch a probe into this incident. So I suppose the question on everyone's lips is whether this is going to threaten plans to resume peace talks.
Yeah, that certainly is the question. We did hear from the White House just a couple hours ago that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will discuss this issue when he meets with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Rome this coming Sunday. A number of countries have been drafting proposals to submit to the United Nations, one by France, Britain, and Germany to conclude peace talks in 2 years' time. Those peace talks at a standstill right now. Another by Jordan to end Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory in the same 2-year period.
And Eunice, as is the custom at this time of year, Time magazine has selected a person or persons it views as someone who made a significant impact for better or worse. And this year, the magazine handed the honour to the men and women fighting on the front lines of the Ebola outbreak.
Indeed, you may not recognize most of the 5 individuals on the 5 separate covers of Time magazine, but they do represent the caregivers, including Liberian surgeon Dr. Jerry Brown and American missionary Dr. Kent Brantley. Now, Time applauded their bravery and commitment for willing to stand and fight the epidemic so that the rest of the world can sleep at night, and also so the global health system could catch up to find an end to this war.
And Eunice, few people, I think, would disagree with the Time magazine's selection, given the extremely dangerous and difficult position those doctors and medical workers put themselves in to help others out. Do we know how they're reacting to this news?
Well, why don't we go ahead and hear from one of the groups directly.
I'm just grateful that Time magazine put the spotlight on it, because it needs to be there. And these Ebola fighters are heroes. They really are. They put their life on the line. The army of young men and women that are fighting to save life.
Another official, Henry Gray from Doctors Without Borders, said it was happy for the recognition, but will be even happier when the last Ebola treatment center is closed and the crisis is declared over. And of course, that fight's still far from over. The current death rate in West Africa still at about 70%. It must be said, though, a lot of progress has been made, particularly in Liberia and Guinea, thanks to the selfless and tireless efforts of this year's Persons of the Year.
Yeah, very happy for them, and we also applaud their efforts, Eunice, and thank you ever so much for your news update as always, and we'll see you back again at noon. Well, thank you ever so much for staying with us. Now it's time for the start of our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit. So the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit is about to get underway in Korea's southern port city of Busan. The first order of the two-day event is the CEO Summit. This summit is bringing together speakers from ASEAN heads of state to world-renowned economists and global CEOs. They are going to be discussing the global outlook and entrepreneurship across Asia, and it's also, of course, a wonderful opportunity for them to network with the 400 or so business leaders from Korea and also plenty from around Southeast Asia. To mark the opening, we are going to hear three short speeches. First, we'll be hearing from the chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Park Young-man. After that, Myanmar's President Thein Sein is going to take to the podium to deliver a congratulatory message to Korea and the members of ASEAN for their 25 years of ties. You can see the scene there of the opening ceremony. And finally, topping it off will be a speech by Korean President Park Geun-hye. She's going to be showcasing the attractiveness of the business climate here in Korea and highlight the many investment and business opportunities available in the country. As Sung-hee mentioned in the report earlier in this newscast, President Park really has a very busy day lined up today. She is scheduled to hold talks with 6 ASEAN leaders on this Thursday, including the leaders of Indonesia, the Philippines and Singapore. So we are still waiting for the opening speech by the chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We can see some of the delegates coming into the room now. And yes, so as we said, around 570 business leaders from Korea and ASEAN are here for this CEO Summit, which kicks off the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit, which will run for 2 days, Thursday and Friday. And we can see some activity here. Here's President Park Geun-hye walking into the room. 2 rounds of applause. And so President Park will be making the keynote speech after we've heard from the chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Park Young-man, and then very special guest, Myanmar's President Thein Sein. He is going to be delivering a congratulatory message to Korea and ASEAN for their 25 years of extremely productive ties, and let's hope ties will continue to improve in the years going forward. This really is a wonderful event being held down there in the southern port city of Busan. Economic ties, like we say, between Korea and ASEAN are as strong as ever, with ASEAN being Korea's 2nd largest trade partner and also 3rd largest investment destination. So this is a huge deal, not only for Korea, but also for ASEAN. I think the speeches are about to start, so why don't we take a listen in now. The first speaker is Park Young-man, chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and here he comes.
Your Excellencies, President Park Geun-hye of the Republic of Korea, President Thein Sein of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha of the Kingdom of Thailand, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to be able to host the ASEAN-DRK CEO Summit as we come together in Busan to commemorate the 25th anniversary of dialogue relations between DRK and ASEAN. Representing the Korean business community, I extend warm welcome to all the state leaders, heads of government, and business leaders. I'm sure that you all have your own assessment of the world economic situations, but allow me to take this opportunity to walk through the global trend with you. 6 years have passed since the outbreak of the 2008 global financial crisis, but the world economy is yet to recover from the side effects of the so-called secular stagnation. Huge government debt is plaguing advanced economies around the world, and they are trying to overcome the crisis through the expansionary policies. BRICS, which have been much praised as the new global engine of growth, are facing a growth slowdown. The world is looking out for a new growth engine that can bring vitality back to the global economy and jumpstart a virtuous cycle of growth and distribution. At this critical juncture, and at this very important venue participated by the representative business leaders of RK and ASEAN region, we will deal with the theme of innovation and dynamism, a new takeoff in ASEAN-RK relations. We'll discuss Asia's role in the global economy and also talk about innovation and cooperation between Korea and ASEAN. Even after the 2008 global financial crisis, ASEAN continued to post 5 to 7% growth rates every year, and its role in the global economy is already prominent. By coming up with a growth cooperation plan for Korea and ASEAN, we would be able to create a new driver for Asia and also the global economy that is seeking to identify new engines of growth. Korea and ASEAN already have a close economic cooperative relationship. ASEAN is Korea's second largest trading partner, as well as investment destination. At the same time, ASEAN is the most frequently visited tourist destination by the Korean people and also the largest consumer base for the Korea's cultural products, Hallyu or the Korean wave. Between ASEAN and Korea, there already exists a close sense of solidarity in the economic, cultural, and sentimental aspects. Last year, President Park Geun-hye led a large-scale economic delegation to Vietnam, Indonesia, and other Asian member states. Since then, ASEAN-Korea economic cooperation has been further facilitated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the world is in the desperate need for a new growth engine, and the world is now turning to Asia. Based on solid foundation for cooperation and growth, through which RK and ASEAN governments establish FTA and other arrangements, we, the business leaders, should now take concrete steps for new initiatives. Korean and ASEAN business leaders need to stoke the entrepreneurial spirit and spark innovation. The leaders should respond to the world by identifying new dynamism, which is much needed in this era. Korean companies are pushing ahead with innovation as part of their efforts to realize creative economy. If Korean businesses and dynamic Asian companies can bring together their efforts, mutual growth will be realized, creating synergy effect that can contribute to new takeoff for the Asia and the world. Before closing, I thank Your Excellencies President Park Geun-hye, President Dae In-sein, and Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha for taking time out of their business schedules to be here today. I sincerely hope that the business will achieve the best results from today's summit. I hope that exchanges of ideas and strengthening Korean ASEAN business cooperation and benefiting global economy will take place today. Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 박용만 회장님 말씀 감사합니다.
Thank you, Chairman Park Yong-man.
다음은 미얀마의 우떼인 대통령님께서 축사를 해주시겠습니다.
The following is the congratulatory remarks by President U Tae-in of Myanmar. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
여러분 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, 안녕하세요. Good morning. I'd like to extend my warmest greetings to the leaders of the ASEAN and the Republic of Korea, who are in the forefront of promoting economic developments of ASEAN and the Republic of Korea, and the chief executive officers who are playing leading roles in the implementation of the economic policies. It is my great honor to deliver the congratulatory speech at the 2014 ASEAN ROK, the CEO Summit. And I have learned that the theme of the summit has been chosen as innovation and dynamism, a new takeoff in ASEAN-Korean economic relations. As the theme aims to promote the ASEAN-Korea economic relations, it is also reflecting the theme of the 25th ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit, building trust, bringing happiness. The economic relations between ASEAN and Korea have been growing since the establishment of dialogue relations in 1989. We are encouraged to see that bilateral trade between ASEAN and Korea grew from $131 billion in 2012 to $135 billion in 2013. Moreover, the significant increase in mutual investment that doubled from $1.7 billion in 2012 to $4 billion in 2013, placing Korea as ASEAN's fifth largest source of FDI, and ASEAN stands as the second largest trading partner of the Republic of Korea. And the economic relations have been making much progress, and I'm very delighted to see the progress made in liberalizing the ASEAN ROK trade and goods agreement. I believe that the regional economic integration will further strengthen once process is fully accomplished. As the Mekong ROK cooperation contributes to ASEAN's endeavor to narrowing the development gaps, enhance regional connectivity, economic integration, and ASEAN community building, I wish to urge from the leaders of the economic circles of ASEAN and the Republic of Korea to actively collaborate in the process. In addition, progress has been made in economic cooperation activities between the ASEAN and Korea, including the adoption of the guidelines for the ASEAN-Korea Economic Cooperation Fund to effectively achieve economic cooperation. We should enhance ASEAN-Korea economic cooperation through effective use of the Korea-ASEAN Business Council, KABC, and the Korea-ASEAN Industrial Technology Cooperation Network, or the KAIT. Today, the ASEAN economy, with the combined GDP, has reached $2.5 trillion, and ASEAN has become the seventh largest economy in the world. In light of this development, we need to maintain the momentum with the aim that ASEAN will become the fourth largest economy in the world by 2050. ASEAN has been enhancing closer economic partnership with other countries in the Asia-Pacific region, including the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or the RCEP process. In the RCEP process, India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Australia, and New Zealand are included to link with the ASEAN. As we are implementing the free trade area, the ongoing free trade regime will be operationalized among 16 countries with a combined population of 3 billion people and a combined GDP of around $17 trillion. Its potential is estimated to make up about 40% of the global trade. To this light, I wish to encourage the leaders of the economic circle to effectively use such progress as the opportunity and make a cooperation in the economic development of this region. In order to implement the regional economic development, public-private partnership takes place as an important role. Public-private partnership will bring great benefits to the economic development, particularly infrastructure development. The partnership will gain key financial investment, skill, and technology from both sides. Moreover, we should attach great importance to people-to-people contacts and cooperation among the people, as we are striving to build ASEAN as the people-centered organization. Therefore, I'd like to urge the leaders of the business community to work with the Asian leaders and the people in the regional economic integration process. To achieve regional economic development, we highly attach importance to sustainable development and balanced economic growth. In this sense, we should give more emphasis to the promotion of small and medium enterprises. Through collective endeavors of people in the region, we will be able to maintain regional peace and stability and also achieve benefits of trade and investment and economic development in this region. In conclusion, we should further explore ways and means to promote the momentum of economic cooperation based on the current economic environment. In view of the further maturing 25 years of ASEAN-Korea dialogue relations, I wish to urge to double our efforts in all sectors of the ASEAN-Korea relations in which we could build trust that will bring happiness to all of us. I'm confident that more innovative ideas and creative visions will emerge from the ASEAN-Korea CEO Summit, which will bring fruitful outcomes for the success of future economic cooperation between ASEAN and Korea. Lastly, I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy and the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry for their excellent arrangements in convening this CEO Summit. I thank you.
우대인 대통령님 감사합니다.
Thank you, President Udain-Shin.
다음은 대한민국 박근혜 대통령님께서 기조연설을 해주시겠습니다.
The following is the keynote speech by President Park Geun-hye of the Republic of Korea. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
여러분 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Your Excellency Thein Sein, President of Myanmar, Honorable Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha of Thailand, Chairman Park Yong-man of Korea Chamber of Commerce Industry, distinguished business leaders from Korea and ASEAN. I extend my heartfelt welcome to all of you to the city of Busan, the gateway to the sea that connects Republic of Korea and ASEAN. Republic of Korea and ASEAN have enjoyed long relations. Several hundred years ago, Korea utilized imported horns of buffalo from Southeast Asia to make arrows used to protect our nation. At the end of the 1970s, during the oil crisis, Korea overcame the crisis thanks to the oil supplied by Indonesia. Including incumbent member of the National Assembly, numerous figures from ASEAN are contributing to the Korean society. Based on such a long relations we have enjoyed, both sides established dialogue relations in 1989 and continuously developed the relation into mutually reciprocal cooperative ties. Especially Korea-ASEAN FTA conclusion was a turning point for the bilateral economic cooperation. Trade volume between Korea and ASEAN was around $61 billion in 2006, but increased to more than $130 billion in 2013, making ASEAN the second largest trading partner and the third largest investment destination for the Korean companies. But we cannot be satisfied with this. Befitting to the share of the Korea-ASEAN economic development in the global economy, we need to take further leap in the area of economic cooperation relations. Combining advantages of Korea and ASEAN, we need to create synergy that inspires new vitality to economies of both sides. I'd like to put forward a few suggestions to maximize such synergy. First of all, SMEs of both sides must collaborate to facilitate their participation in the global value chain. Korea and ASEAN are the most representative regions that achieved economic growth by taking active participation in the global value chain. After concluding ASEAN-Korea FTA, Korean companies increased their investment to Southeast Asia, thus forming production network in diverse areas such as electronics, textiles, and others. Most representative case is that considerable portion of Korean smartphones are produced in Vietnam, accounting for 20% of Vietnamese exports. In order to bring greater economic benefits to the global value chains, participation of the SMEs are critical. We need to explore items where SMEs can take part in while lead global value chain and promote network formation with large conglomerates. In light of that, Korea proposed business programs to incorporate SMEs into global value chain during APEC summit held last November. During the G20 summit, Korea once again asked for G20 support to be given companies of developing nations so as to take part in global value chain. Such discussions would foster favorable environment for SMEs and facilitate their participation in the global value chain. However, fostering environment can be done by government, but materializing participation in creating new value shall be done by business leaders. Today, leaders from SMEs participating in the production network led by large conglomerates have all gathered together. Utilizing this opportunity, when we put our heads together to find solutions, we will be able to find creative cooperative measures. I hope ASEAN ROK Business Council launched yesterday will serve as a foundation to spread such discussion.
Second, the scope of the Korea-ASEAN economic cooperation have so far included mainly energy and manufacturing sectors, but should be expanded to include the service sector as well. Between the peoples of Korea and ASEAN, we are witnessing more lively cultural exchanges. Furthermore, if we could facilitate the service sector, we could create much value and build foundations for cooperation reaching beyond the boundaries of individual states. Cultural exchanges between the peoples of Korea and ASEAN, which we have come to witness more actively in the recent period, will create much value. And already in Korea, many people enjoy pad thai, mee goreng, pho, and other Southeast Asian cuisines. Thai cinema is also popular in Korea. Every year, 1.55 million tourists from Korea visit Southeast Asia. If we are to turn the huge potential into specific outcomes, it is most critical that we aim to add deregulation, without which further development and cooperation in service industry will be hampered. Recently, the IMF and the OECD evaluated highly of the 3-year economic and innovation plan of Korea, saying that of all growth strategies of the G20 countries, Korea's plan had the strongest impact on the GDP growth level. At the core of the 3-year economic innovation plan lies the regulatory reform measures, and the Korean government is currently carrying out reform measures to cut down at least 20% of some 10,000 outstanding regulations by 2017. Recently, we adopted a new system for swiftly reviewing the validity of the regulations, under which those hampering investment and job creation will be handled all at once by a regulatory guillotine. But what matters most is the voice of the business leaders who encounter regulations on site on a day-to-day basis. Please let us know what you need when it comes to regulatory reform. I assure you that your voices will be actively reflected in close consultation with the ASEAN member states, in our RCEP negotiations, and so on. Third, business opportunity must further be expanded through further FTA liberalization measures. Through bilateral FTA arrangements, the ASEAN has spearheaded regional integration efforts in East Asia. More recently, ASEAN has been leading the RCEP negotiations, which is designed to bring 16 countries in the Asia-Pacific region together. This year alone, Korea concluded FTA with China, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Vietnam, which means that Korea now has FTA arrangements with countries that represent 74% of the world GDP. However, regretfully, Korean companies' utilization rate of the Korea-ASEAN FTA is measured at a mere 50% of other free trade agreements. It is mainly because of relatively low degree of effective liberalization and complicated interpretation of the rules of origin. In this, I welcome the Korea and ASEAN agreement to improve on the bilateral FTA in many inquiries, including trade facilitation. I also hope that more companies will come to enjoy benefits of the FTA through further liberalization and improved rules of origin interpretations. I look forward to active support from the business leaders so as to facilitate new rounds of negotiations by the Korean and ASEAN representatives. Dear business leaders, Korea and ASEAN are jointly headed towards shared prosperity. To do so, a relationship of partnership based on trust and confidence should be achieved. Continuous efforts are also required. It is my sincere hope that with the active efforts of the business leaders here today, Korea and ASEAN will successfully develop a partnership. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, well, we've just been watching the opening ceremony of the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit with the keynote speech just given there by Korean President Park Geun-hye. We also heard from the President of Myanmar. For all of the latest on the summit, as it happens, do stay tuned to Arirang TV. You can also catch up with all our stories online. We'll have more updates and connect to our reporters down there in Busan during our next newscast, which is coming up at noon Korea time. Thanks ever so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.